Hi guys, and welcome to the CPFC podcast with me, your host, Alfonso Greenberg. Today in pod 15, I'll be looking over the result over Watford at the FA Cup at Wembley, and we'll be discussing the match, player rankings, my man of the match, as well as hearing from Pardew and a few players and what they had to say after the game. So let's begin. Today we're going to start with Glad All Over from the 1990 FA Cup semi-final as sung by the players. A Connor Wickham pinpoint header sealed an FA Cup final place for the Eagles as they beat Watford 2-1 to set up a rematch of the 1990 Classic against Manchester United at Wembley Stadium on Saturday 21st of May. Wickham's 61st minute header ensured history would repeat itself in one of the world's most famous sporting competitions. Palace had the lead for most of the first half thanks to a 6th minute header from Yannick Bolasie, only for Watford to equalise 10 minutes into the half with a 55th minute header from the captain Troy Deeney. With the red and blue army behind them, Alan Pardew's side attacked their 2013 playoff final opponents with the team back to full strength following the 2-1 midweek loss at Old Trafford. Joe Ward and Scott Tan returned from injury, with Jason Punchin, Yannick Bolasie, Connor Wickham and Wayne Hennessy all coming back to the starting 11. Joe Ledley, Bakary Sakho and Emmanuel Adebayor all dropped to the bench, which also featured James McArthur on his way back to full fitness. Using the famous width of the Wembley Stadium, Palace quickly asserted their attacking authority, forcing the first corner after just 3 minutes, but Punchin's dead ball came to nothing. 3 minutes later, and with Johan Cabaye on corner duties, it was a different story. The Frenchman's cross saw Damien Delaney beat his marker, Craig Cathcart, to flip the ball deep to the back post, invading Pantilimon in the Watford goal, and despite Deeney trying his very best, Bolasie had the easiest knock-ins to make it 1-0 to Palace and send Pardew into celebratory shock with Keith Millen on the bench. Bolasie's cool and measured celebration echoed his side on the pitch in the first half, as time and time again the forwards knocked back hard to stifle any Watford threat. Former Eagle Ben Watson scored the 2013 FA Cup winning goal for Wickham. He was only going to be a threat with his set pieces, but his first chance ended with a Hennessy getting an easy first touch and settling into the game. Bolasie and Zaha were linking up well on the wide spaces after just 11 minutes. A Zaha cross found its way into the Watford box, signalling their attacking attempt would continue. Joe Ward nearly made it 2 own goals in 2 games for the Palace defence, as a hopeful cross by Namor invaded everyone in the Palace box, but hit the right back to go off for a corner, when it could have easily ended up in the Palace goal. Cabaye forced Pantilimon again to push away a dangerous cross in the 22nd minute as Palace continued to target the Watford keeper. And the first of many penalty appeals rang out 3 minutes later as Troy Deeney looked to touch the ball with his hand. On the hour mark, Capoue was stretchered off for Watford after pulling up with an injury, and the Palace squad used it as an opportunity to take on board some liquids. But an effective attack is nothing without a strong defence, and with Delaney and Hennessy, who haven't had a shot in the game to save, helping to sniff out Deeney 10 minutes before the break, Watford could only find a way to break through the wall. The Irish defender falling to the ground in a daze after heading away a strong Jose Manuel shot. Just before the half, Palace had another shout for a penalty as the ball appeared to hit Nathan Ike's hand from a Zaha cross, but referee Pawson waved away the penalty appeals. The second half saw Watford gradually get into the game, more with an increased physical presence, which resulted in Deeney out-thumping Dan in the 6-yard box to head home to make it 1-1 in the 55th minute. Just 5 minutes earlier, it could have been 2-0 to Palace, as good link-up play between Wickham and Bolasie saw the DR Congo winger beat the right-back and draw a shot goalwards, only for Pantilimon to save with his feet and over for a corner. Dan had just picked up a yellow card after fouling Agallo in a test of mental fortitude. Palace continued to push Watford and was rewarded on the 63rd minute. As the ball broke down the wing, Papa Soare aimed at an out-swinging cross into the box on a sixpence for Wickham, who easily beat grounded Aki. As the former Sunderland forward rose into the northwest London air, he directed a powerful header back where it came to bury it into the net and put Palace closer to avenging their 1990 defeat. In the 63rd minute, it was all hands up to pump for Palace as bodies were littered all over the area. Such was the determination not to concede again. Jednak, Dan, Cabaye and Puncham were all left prone after they frothed a Watford attack. Palace then brought on the returning James McArthur for a visibly tired Bolasie in the 74th minute, Bakary Sakho for Puncham on the 83rd minute, and Emmanuel Adebayor for Wickham in the 86th minute, as the sold-out Palace end cheered the winner off. As the game entered 5 minutes of additional time, Deeney was booked for a clash on his arms on Jednak in the penalty area. Palace held firm, and with the final whistle, Palace fans, including Puncham, who threw his shirt into the away end, could celebrate, knowing that they will be returning to the home of English football in under a month. So now to go on to the player rankings. So like I say every week and then through podcast, if you do have any different opinions or you just want to say something about the game, do comment it below so myself and other fans can see what you say and we can add a bit more discussion to my channel and obviously the video itself. But before we start with it, I'd just like to say what a fantastic game of football the game at Wembley was. People were calling it a close affair, and if you look at the stats, statistically, it was a very close game, obviously 50-50 possession, which is very rare in football. But if you look at it, other than the possession, I think Palace were quite dominant. They were obviously the better team on the day. But, credit to Watford, they did put up a good fight. Obviously scored the goal in the second half. Obviously couldn't hold on. But, good luck to them in the future. But obviously Palace are going all the way to Wembley, to the FA Cup final against the 1990 winners, where Palace last got to the final against Man United, so that'll be a very interesting game. But obviously, going to move on to the player rankings, but I thought I'd just say that because it was an absolute fantastic game and a fantastic achievement for all the players. So to start off with Wayne Hennessy, I'm going to give Wayne Hennessy a 6. In truth, the Welshman didn't have a lot to do. Deeney's header may have been savable, but it came from very close range. So to be honest, you can't really give Hennessy a really high rating, because he didn't really do much in the game. And, people may say it was a slight mistake that he didn't save the goal. But really, it was just like Bolasie's goal. It was really close to him, so he would have needed really, really quick pinpoint reactions. Obviously, he didn't have that. But, ultimately, we did win the game. But you can't really fault him for that, because when it's at that close range, you need really good agility and ability to be able to save them. But, he was very unlucky, because if his hands had gone up a few seconds earlier, he would have saved that goal and kept the clean sheet, which, he's doing quite regularly now. He's had a bit of a dip, but now he's slowly getting back up to form. And, there's nothing really else to say about him, because he didn't really have to do much at all, and that's why he's got a lower rating. And another thing, I suppose, is just his goal kicks. The goal kicks, very accurate. Obviously, what he was trying to do, rather than going centrally, he was taking advantage of the fact we had wingers that were playing well or in form recently. So instead of putting the ball down the middle, he's putting it out to the wingers so they can make their runs and ultimately, lead to a counter-attack. And I suppose that's a good thing coming from him. So now to go on to the right back, Joe Ward. I'm going to give Joe Ward a 6. Ward had another solid game, although he was fortunate that his miss hit a clearance from another cross by Adam Nyom didn't go into his own net. So Ward, once again, a very solid performance from Ward. What you would expect of Joe Ward. It just shows that when the team have a really important match, these players can step up, make sure we can get a result, and ultimately win the game. And I suppose he's a classic example of this, because although he did have that chance or that missed opportunity for Watford where he almost scored no goal, ultimately, if you look back at the replays, he'd done all he could to make sure that it would divert for a corner. So I suppose give him the credit there. But, once again, a solid game from him. He was getting back defensively. He was, when Dan or Delaney were quite far forward, he would make sure he would cut back or come inside to a more central role to make sure he can cover for them as they were running back, obviously, from set pieces, etc. And I suppose him and Soiree, both on the fullbacks, doing brilliantly to serve the likes of Zaha, Puncheon and Bolasie on the wings. They've done really well by running up, behind them, giving them the ball, supplying them the ball, making runs forward so they can receive the ball and ultimately get the crosses in as well. So a really good game from Joe Ward, another solid performance. And like I said, two players, Ward, Hennessy, have stood up to the big occasion. Now for Scott Dan, I'm going to give Scott Dan a 6. So Dan struggled to deal with Deeney all game. The Watford captain was too powerful for him, and Dan found out what his lose-up marked for Watford's goal. Dan was perhaps fortunate not to be sent off for a clumsy foul when he was already booked. So Dan, he had a bit of an off game. Let's say he didn't, like these other players, he didn't step up to the game, the game at Wembley. But you know what? He still had a pretty solid game. He was pretty solid in the air. He was pretty good in the air, defending the corners from Watford. Also, he isn't that fast, but he was able to get back and contain the likes of Deeney and Igalo by obviously making himself big, blocking shots. And ultimately, his defensive performance, him, Hennessy, Dan, Delaney, Ward, Soiree, ultimately their defensive performance led to us winning the game. And, if it weren't for him, he had a bit of an off game, but if it weren't for him, tracking back and making sure that no shots were taken to Hennessy, obviously, ultimately meant we won the game. And, he could have been sent off for the tackle, but looking back at it and actually hearing from Howard Webb, who was the sort of pundit referee, let's say, for the game, and he said that when it's in a game, in a final, the referee wants to do as little as possible, as much as possible, to make sure they don't send the player off, because ultimately that would ruin the whole experience, the whole game. And to be honest, if Dan committed another foul after that foul, he would have been sent off and we would have been fine with that. But for the two fouls, one of them, decent foul, he got the ball, that's fine. That's the one he got carded for. The other one was a bit unlucky because both players ran into each other, and, I think the referee made the right decision there. Not only because, you don't want to change the game, you don't want to send players off, but also because, they were both running to the ball, so someone was going to get, tackle him. And ultimately, we got away with that as such. But maybe in another game, he would have been sent off. But I think because of the occasion and because, he didn't exactly mean that tackle, he didn't obviously get carded. But if you do have a different opinion about Scott Dan, I know some people do comment it below. So obviously other people will see what you thought. Now to move on to Damien Delaney, who I'm going to give a 7. Whereas Dan struggled, Delaney was excellent. And when I say excellent, I mean phenomenal. He was dominant at the back and played a part in Palace's first goal too. So I might as well just start with the goal. And it was if you've seen the semi-final goal that Pardew scored in 1990 against Liverpool, then that is basically exactly the same goal as Bolasie scored. So Kabay obviously whipped in the corner, and instead of it sort of going into the middle of the box, he done it narrowly to the post where Deeney was there. So Deeney backheaded it to the back post where Bolasie was there to header it into the goal. So really, a really good goal there. A lovely assist from Damien Deeney, and lovely accuracy and skill to be able to not header it up, but to header it with the back of his head to make sure it can go to a player at the back post to header it in. You know, Pardew said after the game that they've been watching videos of the semi-final against Liverpool, of the FA Cup final in 1990 against Man United, and obviously these sort of things they brought into training and they managed to duplicate them and redo them, and obviously it paid off. Well done, Pardew. Brilliant tactic, and you know, maybe that's the way forward, looking at good goals and analysing them and seeing how we could add that to our performance. But other than that, unlike Dan, you know, he was a bit better than Dan. He was very solid at the back, obviously an aerial threat as from the goal, and you know, he wasn't able to run back as much, obviously, and because of that, the likes of Ward and Suarez were cutting inside, obviously with their speed to defend. But other than that, when he was able to get back, he was able to cope with Deeney and Ighalo, whether it be by a tackle, a block or a clearance. He was able to do that, combine them together to have an all-round really good solid defensive performance. Now to move on to Papa Suarez, who I'm going to give a 7. Suarez was great in attack and defence and was booming down the flank all game. It was his cross that set up Connor Wickham for the winner. So, I know, there's only one thing to start with. You know, Deeney got the assist for the other goal, and Papa Suarez got the assist from this, obviously, for Wickham's goal. And the thing with Papa Suarez is he's sort of 50-50, let's say, with crosses. We know he's got really good crossing ability, but 9 times out of 10, his crosses are good. But every so often you get a cross that either goes into the hands of the keeper or just goes over. But this game against Watford, all of his crosses, maybe it would be 1 or 2, all of his crosses were superb. They were very direct, got to a player who he wanted to, and obviously a few occasions we were unlucky not to score, but the one he did score, that was a very precise, really good, build-up play to the cross. He crossed it into Wickham, who Wickham had a brilliant header down into the left corner, you know. And that's what we need. We need players like Suarez, like Zaha, like Bolasie getting in the crosses so that we can have someone like Wickham, a very tall, well-built player, strong player, who can header the ball home, get it in the goal. And, you know, ultimately, that won us the game, basically. I think our counter-attack was superb on the day, and the likes of Suarez and Ward assisting the wingers actually really helped with the sort of setup of the play. Other than that, like I said, he was able to do his attacking duty, so getting forward, and obviously the build up to that cross was superb. You know, he was able to run forward. And then I suppose also his defensive role as well. He is a left back, an attacking left back at that. But, you know, when he has to do his defensive duties, he's able to get back. And in the last few games, we've seen more of his defensive side. And, you know, Watford was a classic example. You know, he's using his pace to his advantage by keeping up with the likes of Ighalo and Troy Deeney. Obviously, Deeney and Dan couldn't really keep up with their pace. But, you know, Ward and Suarez were both able to cut inside and obviously defend them with their pace. And, you know, Papa Suarez, I suppose, 3 or 4 points to take. His crosses were superb. Defensive and attacking attributes were superb. And also just his clearances, you know, when the ball's in danger, it's in our half, just clear it up wide, maybe for someone to get on the end of it, but just to make sure. And so, yeah, that's basically a performance from Papa Suarez. Now to move on to the defensive midfield. So start with Yohan Cabaye. To start with Yohan Cabaye, I'm going to give Yohan Cabaye a 7. Cabaye was neat and tidy all game. His passing looked sharp. His corner led to Palace's first goal too. And I suppose in the last few games, Cabaye's been a bit off. He hasn't been playing to the best of his abilities, what we know he can do. But you know what? He stood up to the plate like most players and put a brilliant performance, one of the best performances of the season against Watford to make sure we could win the game. And I suppose looking at the game, I did look at the stats once again. And surprisingly, Jedinak had a better pass completion rate to Yohan Cabaye. Cabaye had a very good one. I think it was 94%. But Mile Jedinak had a 100% pass completion rate, so really good from two of our defensive players. Obviously, we want them to be able to pass the ball well and sharp, and both of them done that job really well, got the ball out wide, and ultimately led to the counter-attack. And obviously another thing to credit Yohan Cabaye for, other than his passing, is the corner. His corner was superb. The delivery was really good. The knock-on header from Deeney was even better, and obviously the other header from Bolasie was superb as well. So a very good performance from Cabaye, considering he's been a bit off in the last few games, and hopefully the last 3 games of the season he can hopefully get back to what he was at the start of the season and hopefully end the season on a high. Now to move on to Mile Jednak, the captain for the game, and obviously a very good captain at that. Obviously we won the game. But I'm going to give Mile Jednak an 8, and I haven't given 8s for a very long, well, I say very long time. I don't really give them up, or give them out quite a lot. But in the last few games, the performances from the players have been phenomenal. And obviously, you know, Jednak showed that. So the skipper led by example all game. His work rate was phenomenal, and he won so many defensive headers too. So basically, that's just saying how, obviously, he led the side very well. He was able to command the back line as well as the attacking midfielders to make sure they knew where they had to be, their place. And ultimately, that led to a very organised team that ultimately won the game. You know, if the team's not organised and players are sort of out of position, you know, the counter-attacks wouldn't work as well. But, you know, where the players knew where they were, Mile Jednak controlled them. Ultimately, I suppose that won us the game. And also, he isn't the fastest player. He's one of the oldest players, but his work rate was phenomenal. Whenever he gets the ball, instead of doing what he used to do, is sort of get the ball, pass it out because he doesn't want to have possession. You know, he's got the ball. He's, you know, running around, trying to look for the pass rather than just, you know, flinging it off to a player. And, you know, that's really good. And I suppose another thing just to credit him for is his headers as well, and especially the defensive ones. You know, he wasn't really much threat from corners. But, you know, he was able, that when the ball's coming in from Troy Deeney or Garlo, or when the corner's coming in for Watford, he was able to make himself high, headed the ball away, and ultimately, you know, defend the goal. And I suppose that's another thing to congratulate him for, him and Cabaye. You know, they sort of stand, their position is in front of the defenders just to shore them up, make sure, you know, we don't leak any goals. And I think that sort of solid sort of 6 formation at the back, let's say, is very solid, and ultimately is leading us to conceding a lot less goals. And I think that that's a very good tactic that quite a lot of managers are using lately, is by having sort of the solid players or defensive players in the midfield so they can get forward as well, but, you know, also just to shore up the defence. So a very good performance from the captain, and once again, a hot contender for man of the match. Now to move on to the attacking / right midfielder, Jason Puncheon. So I'm going to give Jason Puncheon a 6. Puncheon didn't do much wrong, but he didn't have a huge impact on the game, although not for trying to have an attacking threat. So basically, all that's saying is Puncheon didn't really do much in the game. He didn't really feel his presence throughout the game, but ultimately, when he did have the ball, he used it effectively, and that's what had the impact on the game. You know, he didn't make as many runs as he would normally, as many passes, as many sort of runs, let's say. But, you know, he still had the impact on the game because when he had possession, when he had the ball, he was able to use it effectively, whether it would be find a pass or a through ball or a cross. You know, he was able to think what to do and obviously do it. And you know what? Ultimately led to us winning the game because he was creating these chances. And that's something we've missed during this sort of winless run in the league. We've missed creativity, and now he's come back. We're starting to see creativity creep back into the side. And you know what? Although he wasn't really in the game, or you didn't really see much of him, he was not lacking trying. You know, this is what we want from our players, even though they don't get the ball. Instead of them getting frustrated and wanting the ball, you know, they're able to get into places. And although he didn't really get the ball, he was still in these places, and he showed 110% effort. So a really good performance from him. Hopefully he can, you know, up his game even more and hopefully get a few more goals, because he's been a bit low this season. You know, he hasn't really scored many goals, but hopefully he can score a goal, boost his confidence even more, and hopefully kick on next season. So now to talk about the right midfielder, Wilfried Zaha. And I say right midfielder, he did swap quite a lot throughout the game with Bolasie and also Puncheon as well. So Watford couldn't cope with Zaha, especially in the first half. He was in great form. It's a shame he couldn't get himself a deserved goal. And you know what? I think 2 things, or I suppose it's one thing to highlight, it was just 2 events to highlight about him, was his superb runs. You know, Watford in the second half, twice this happened. Watford had a corner, it was headed away by Jednak or Deeney, whoever it was. You know, Zaha got the ball, was able to use his strength and his ability to get past players, his strength obviously to push away players to get the ball, and he made a run, literally the whole pitch from one side to the other. He went to cut inside, had a shot on goal, and obviously Pantilimon saved one of them, and the other one hit the side net. And so, you know, a really good runs, you know, down that right flank from Wilfried Zaha, and ultimately that could have led to a few more goals if it had been for there was someone in the box. Obviously there wasn't anyone in the box because of the corner, but if there was, he could have squared it and scored. But, you know, he went alone and he showed, you know, I'm going to take this chance, he said. You know, you can imagine what he's saying. He said, I'm going to take this chance. I'm not going to wait, hold up the ball and lose the possession. I'm going to have a shot, and ultimately, you know, if the keeper hadn't been there, or he would have been positioned slightly differently, that ball would have gone in, and the other one, they hit the side netting. Maybe if he cut in more, you know, which we know he's good at, he's superb at cutting inside. Maybe if he cut inside more, he would have ultimately, you know, scored the goal. But other than that, you know, he had a superb, you know, performance in the game. And like I said there, Watford couldn't cope with him. And I think the thing they couldn't cope with is his pace. And I think his sheer pace is what won us the game, to be honest. Him and Bolasie, with their strength and their pace, ultimately won us the game because they were able to run forward, get these crosses in, obviously with the help of Ward and Suarez as well, get these crosses in. So Wickham, you know, Deeney, Bolasie could header the ball in. And that's the sort of thing we need for a player with his ability. You know, he's in great form at the minute. You know, he's playing well, and hopefully he can get a few more goals in the season. Hopefully, you know, we can get a player up to 10 goals in the season. You know, it's highly unlikely at this stage of the season, you know, top players on 6 goals. But maybe, you know, maybe Wickham could get a hat-trick, maybe, let's say, because we haven't got a player to get a hat-trick this season. Maybe Bolasie can get a hat-trick. Even Cabaye, maybe he can score a few more penalties, you know. So you hopefully, you know, Zaha can get a few more goals, you know, just by, practicing his finishing, because, you know, it's superb, but just to practice that a little bit more so that when he has these opportunities again, when he's running down the flank, he's one-on-one with the keeper, hopefully he can do better with them. And you know what? It's a shame he didn't get a goal, because his performance definitely did warrant a goal, because he was definitely one of the best attacking players in the team. Now to move on to Yannick Bolasie, the man of the moment, obviously scored the goal in the 6th minute to give Palace the lead and ultimately won us the game. So I'm going to give him an 8. Now, unlike Zaha, Bolasie did well to get his goal. He too had the better of his marker on numerous occasions in another excellent display. So, unlike Zaha, like I said there, Bolasie got the goal. And it was a good goal, admittedly, a very good header. And like I said at the beginning, there was an exact replay of the goal in the 1990 semi-final against Liverpool, you know. The corner was whipped in, headed to someone at the front post, headed it back to someone on the back post, and that person was Alan Pardew, and Alan Pardew headed it into the goal and ultimately won us the game against Liverpool. And, you know, Pardew said, you know, after the game and before the game, you know, they've been looking at videos, you know, videos of famous Palace wins and goals throughout the FA Cup. And, you know, ultimately that was one of the ones they showed, and they've implied it in training. They've practiced this set piece, and ultimately it worked, you know. The corner was whipped in, lovely back header from Deeney, obviously for Bolasie to score. No one was marking Bolasie, so Bolasie took this opportunity with a very well directed header into the goal. And I suppose another thing other than the goal was he was our best attacking threat. He was always making runs down the right, using his pace and his strength to run past players to help sort of push them away so he can get forward. Also, he got in a few crosses a few times, and also where he was playing quite central throughout the game, as well as drifting out wide. When he was central, he was able to have a few shots on goal from outside the area. Ultimately, they didn't come to anything, but it's good that he's taking these opportunities. I don't think there's really much to say other than the goal, his sheer pace, you know, the runs he made. But you know what? I'm happy for Bolasie because he's now joint top goal scorer, and hopefully he can kick on his season and get a few more goals, because the partnership we've got at the minute with Wickham and Bolasie is working really well, and that's what won us games the first half of the season, you know. Because Pardew said that was our strongest starting 11, whether it would be without MacArthur or with MacArthur instead of Jednak. Them two are a bit debatable, which one you put in, but you know, that was our strongest lineup, and that was the lineup we won games with at the beginning of the season, you know. And if we had that lineup with the likes of Bolasie playing off Wickham, maybe we would have won a few more games in the league. But you know what? I'm not putting him off, because I think this partnership can be a fire-filled partnership, let's say, once they get going. And hopefully we can get another string of games together with Wickham and Bolasie playing up front. We've got 3 games left of this season. Hopefully that partnership can get a few more goals, and ultimately, hopefully, I pray that a player can get 10 goals this season, because, you know, that is an aim for a player to get 10 goals this season, and hopefully the player can fulfil this. And now that just moves me nicely on to Connor Wickham, the match winner, or the goal winner. And I'm actually going to give him an 8. So I've given out a few 8s this game because the performances were absolute class. And Wickham is a classic example of a solid performance. So Wickham did well as the target man, bringing Palace's 3 attacking midfielders into play. The header for his goal was outstanding. Even the huge Pantilimon couldn't header it in, or couldn't get near it. So Wickham, he's playing a sort of a target man because Bolasie, he's playing sort of a 4-4-2, let's say, or 4-4-1-1 formation. So Bolasie playing just behind Wickham. So obviously Bolasie's able to make these runs and obviously target the man. That's why he's called the target man. He's able to find Wickham, find him as the target, and obviously get the ball to him. And that's the same for the wingers. You know, Zaha, Punch, and they're getting the ball into the target man, and that was ultimately the target, because we know that if we can get crosses in, Watford may not be able to deal with them. And obviously we've got a really good aerial threat in Connor Wickham, who's able to header them home. So, you know, a really good game from him. And, you know, the header was superb. You know, forget the cross, because the cross was just absolute class, but the header was really good as well, because he could have headed it in the centre, you know, and maybe Pantilimon would have got there. But, you know, he found, you know, quick split-second reaction. He saw the ball coming in. He thought, let's go bottom corner so we can beat Pantilimon. So he went into the bottom left-hand corner. Pantilimon wasn't quite tall enough or stretched enough to reach it. And ultimately, you know, a fantastic goal. If he would have gone central or maybe higher, Pantilimon would have got it. But because he tucked it right into the bottom, you know, left-hand corner, Pantilimon wasn't able to get it. And ultimately, you know, thanks to him, we are in the FA Cup semi-final for the second time in Palace's history. But, you know, other than that, really good hold-up play from Wickham throughout the game. His headering ability, other than the goal, was superb throughout the game. And also just his presence. You could feel his presence because, you know, players knew they were comfortable. They were confident that, you know, if they put the ball into the air, they knew that Connor Wickham could either hold her up or header it. You know, they've got a trust in Wickham that he can take these opportunities. And, you know, ultimately, he took all the opportunities given to him, and ultimately that won the goal. But you know what? An absolute stunning performance from him, and hopefully he won't get injured again and we can see more of him. Now, there were three substitutes throughout the game, and I'm not really going to give them ratings because they were only on for the last sort of 20-15 minutes, because they didn't really have an impact on the game. But one thing to do, I can say, is that they added a bit more energy to the game. So obviously, James McArthur came on, Emmanuel Adebayor came on, and Baku Saka came on. So they're not really tactical changes as such, because we were winning at that point, and they weren't really because of injuries or, you know, like I said, tactical. They were just, I personally think they were just based on the fact that we want to keep the fitness up. You know, McArthur came on, added a bit more energy. Obviously came on for Punchin, I believe. So already done. Punchin was a little bit tired, so brought him out. So McArthur sort of played in a more attacking role because we had Jednak and Kabai. So he played more attacking role. He was done brilliant with the ball, you know, the twists and turns to get past players. He was using his strength to run past them, hold them off. You know, he did find a few passes. Ultimately, they didn't lead to anything. But, you know, the fact that he's taken these chances was superb. Also, who else came? So, obviously, Saka came on. He didn't really have a big impact on the game. He was just someone to, you know, just make sure up the game, you know, a bit more defensive, let's say, than more attacking winger, which we would normally play, just to shore the team up, keep the fitness levels high for the next game, and ultimately just to hold on to the game. Obviously, Emmanuel Adebayor came on as well, and he came on just after sort of Wickham scored his goal. And that was, once again, you know, if Wickham scored a goal, we want him starting at the next game, obviously, because ultimately, hopefully, fingers crossed, he'll score another goal against Newcastle. But you know what? Take him off. But Adebayor had a very good game. You know, he was only on for 20 minutes. But, you know, when the crosses were coming in, he was able to head them down. Also, he's not the fastest player. But you know what? He was able to battle with the right backs and the left backs, the full backs, let's say. You know, to get the ball in. He made a few crosses. Obviously, they didn't come to anything. But you know what? He took these chances, as well as, you know, playing central as Wickham. He was travelling in and out, sort of from the wing. And ultimately, you know, that led us to winning the game. So there you have it. They are my player rankings. Now for my man of the match. So for this week's man of the match, I do have my normal 4 nominations. But obviously, we did have a very good, solid performance, a very good attacking performance against Watford in the Cup. And, you know, it was actually very difficult for me to narrow it down to 4 people. And this was just for the Twitter poll, let alone my own opinion. And, I did have to go to a few forums, a few Twitter accounts to find out what other people thought about the game. And most people had a similar sort of opinion to me on who they thought were man of the match. Having a look at their opinions, I managed to narrow it down to 4 players. And once again, if you do have any opinions, anything you want to say about the game, or just, you want to comment who you thought was man of the match, don't forget to leave a comment below so myself and other fans can see what you thought and so we can have a bit of discussion. But the 4 nominations I have are Mile Yannick Bolasie, Wilfried Zaha and Connor Wickham. So I'm going to go through the Twitter poll. So in last place with 10% of the votes is Yannick Bolasie. Then in third place with 13% of the votes is Connor Wickham, which means in second place is Mile Yannick, which therefore means that with 47% of the votes is Wilfried Zaha. So congratulations to Wilfried Zaha. If you happen to be listening, congratulations. You don't win anything, but you do get my sincere congratulations. So I am going to go through who I thought my man of the match was. And you know what? You've heard a lot. It was a very solid performance from all the teams. So you've heard from, the player rankings that all the players had really, really solid performances. So I'm not really going to explain much about their performances, but obviously I'm going to give you sort of one-word reviews, let's say. So Mile Yannick, just his defensive and heading ability. Yannick Bolasie because of the goal and his attacking presence throughout the game. Wilfried Zaha because of his attacking threat. He lacked finishing, but, his very good attacking threat ultimately could have led to more goals, and also his sheer pace. And obviously for Connor Wickham, for his goal, his hold-up play, and also his ability to pass and get headers. So there are sort of reasons, mini reviews for each player, why they stood out for me and other fans more than most of the other players. But this is a very hard decision for me, to be honest. I personally may have gone with the poll, but I've done the poll now, so I've got their people's opinion on Twitter. And once again, if you do want to ever vote on my Twitter or just see what I post on there, or just want to tweet me, do tweet me at the CPFC podcast. And if you do tweet me, I'm sure to reply. But you know what? It was a very hard decision for me. I had to use Twitter, obviously my poll as well, forums, different opinions, because it was very hard for me to actually come out and with someone who I thought was the man of the match. And to be honest, maybe a bit controversial considering the circumstances and the Twitter poll, but I'm going to go against the Twitter poll this week, and I'm going to go for Yannick Bolasie. And I did vote for him in the other polls as well. But the reason I'm giving it to Bolasie, other than Wilfried Zaha, who won the poll, is because obviously Bolasie got the goal. So ultimately, that's ready. You're gone. You're, more or less top of the list for man of the match because you scored a crucial goal in a crucial win that sent you to a final of a cup. But also just because he was the attacking threat. Wilfried Zaha was probably, they were probably, let's say, the joint best attacking threats because they both had spells of the game where they were more attacking than each other. So, they were good in that sense. But the reason I give it to Yannick, just because of his sheer pace, his hold-up play, and of course the goal. But you know what? If you do have any opinions, do leave them below because, this was a hard decision. So I just want to hear what you, thought of the game and, just to add a bit more discussion. So there you have it. That's my podcast review. Now we're going to listen to what Pardew had to say after the game.
Alan, fantastic achievement for the club and a great team performance today.
Well, not just a team performance, a staff, a club performance. 2 owners were here, our new owners. They see how special our fans are in a big occasion like this. And we delivered for our fans, which we haven't done in home games, unfortunately. So I'm glad we're playing the final away from home at Wembley. Suits us.
Now, going back to that first goal, to paraphrase an old bit of commentary, somewhere out the crowd came Bolasie on that one. Very well worked.
Yeah, we did talk about, as a homage to 1990, we should try that corner because Deeney protects that front area and the little flick on before him could work, and it did. Doesn't always, but of course it did today, so it's great. The outstanding goal was the second goal, though. Because we only lost control of that game for about 5-10 minutes, in my opinion, and they scored Watford, and it was a challenge for us. But we talked at half-time about we were so in control in the first half. But the second goal was still special. Great ball in by Papa, and Connor, who I thought gave a defining performance today. It was a great finish.
Signs there that Connor, just obviously looking ahead to next season, could be that goal scorer that we've been looking for all of this season.
Well, he's been very unlucky First half of the season he was outstanding without getting the goals. He got the goals, then got injured, and then injured again. He's had a stop-start season. This guy is not the finished article, but you know what? When he's 27, 28, he could well be, and he showed glimpses of it today.
And looking ahead to the final, there's going to be loads of Palace fans there. It's even better than today. What do you think the chances are?
Well, Man United is going to be a different game plan. A game plan not as adventurous as it was today. But that doesn't mean we can't control that game plan from a deeper set and protect ourselves, because the forward players Man United got will just rip you apart if we played like we did today. So we have to have a different game plan and see it through. But you have to remember, game plans is one thing, delivering it is something else. And our players delivered a game plan today right on the money. Absolutely brilliant. They're a pleasure to manage. It's a pleasure to be manager of this football club. And I'm so pleased for them that they're going to have a cup final like I did and experience that with this great fan base we have.
As an added bonus for Crystal Palace getting to the FA Cup final for the first time since 1990, we're now going to listen to the interviews with Yannick Bolasie and Connor Wickham.
Yannick, congratulations, goal in an FA Cup semi-final. How's it feel?
You know, obviously I'm delighted for myself, but more important, you know, I'm delighted for us as a team. You know, I think we deserve nothing less, you know, for the fans especially. You know, where the season's been a bit of a roller coaster. It's great to get in the final, and obviously a lovely thing for our manager as well, because he stuck with us and, you know, kept the confidence in all of our players.
Yeah, talking of the manager, that goal that you scored was an exact replica of his goal in 1990.
You know, I think we saw a goal like yesterday, you know. I'm not sure who took the corner. You know, it might be John Clark, I'm not sure. But they flicked on at the front post and in the back, you know. And, you know, obviously, the manager's had a word with me before the game and at half-time, and he's kept the confidence in me, you know, and had the confidence to play me up front. When obviously a lot of people probably think, you know, I shouldn't be playing up front. But when the manager's kept confidence in me, you know, believing I can score goals, I'm just delighted to play a part in today's semi-final.
And finally, what was it like playing in front of these fans today?
You know, it's lovely. You know, the fans have been great today. Obviously, I have a lot of family around here as well, so it's been an honour, you know, and it's a dream come true for me, you know.
Cool, thanks Yannick, enjoy the occasion.
Yeah, thanks.
Connor, a winning goal at Wembley, what a day for you and the club.
Yeah, for myself personally, it's, you know, it's hard to put into words what it means. It's, you know, it's one of them once in a lifetime things that, you know, you can't put into words, but the most important thing is that we've got ourselves into a final, and we've given the fans and the club and the squad something to look forward to.
It was a really strong team performance, wasn't it? I mean, even when Watford got that goal back, straight away we were back up the other end.
Yeah, we were. I think the goal that they got was my fault, so I felt like I owed it to the team, and thankfully, you know, my header was well placed and the keeper couldn't get it, and that got us back in front, and we looked solid from then. You know, Watford, you know, they gave us a good match, but in the end, our chances and our positivity, you know, was too much.
A great cross from Pap Soiree for the goal. You're confident that, you know, with the right service, you can bang in loads of goals up front?
Yeah, I've said that since I came to Palace, and that's why I did. As a striker, you know, it's a dream to, you know, to have the creativity we do, and you know, we've got two boys down there on the left and the right that, you know, that can burn people for pace, and for me, it's just, you know, being in the right areas at the right time, because I know the chances are going to come. And thankfully today, me and Yala were in the right place at the right time and managed to get the win.
And finally, a word on the fans today. Have you ever seen anything like that before?
I've never. It's the first time I've experienced something like that, and we've got it all again to look forward to. And that's something that, you know, is going to be priceless to the fans. You know, giving them a chance to come back to Wembley in an FA Cup final, and hopefully, you know, have another positive outcome.
So there, now you've heard what Pardew, Bolasie and Wickham have to say. That concludes my match review of Crystal Palace versus Watford at the FA Cup semi-final at Wembley. But make sure to come back next week for my pre- and post-match review of Crystal Palace versus Newcastle, or Newcastle versus Crystal Palace to be pedantic. So thanks for watching, and remember to up the Palace. We're the famous Crystal Palace and we're going back to Wembley.